Hello everyone and welcome back. I had promised a guide at the announcement that I was going to make new content and it's finally here. While unfortunately it will not be its Apple guide, I still wanted to make it on a weapon that I am experienced in. That weapon is the Splatana wiper. I'm a competitive player and welcome to the beginner's guide to the Splatana wiper. I'm calling it a beginner's guide because while I am now banned from the Ink Up and Little Squid League, my journey as a competitive player has just begun. Please note that there are better Splatana players out there such as Zenith and Chase247, and I highly recommend checking out other guides, but I just want to share my experiences and how I play this weapon. This guide will be based on the vanilla wiper and not the wiper deco, as that weapon's playstyle is vastly different from the vanilla kit. So without further ado, let's move on. Before we start, let's cover the basics. The wiper is in the Splatana class, a weapon that uses its quicker mobility and slashes to pick off opponents quickly. It has a horizontal slash that is a 4-shot at 30 damage and a vertical that deals 60 damage if you hit it. These two options give the weapon some combo potential, as well as give you different options to certain engagements. It is important that you understand when to use either the vertical or the horizontal, since getting that down is key to becoming a good Splatana player. But other than that, that's pretty much the very basic of basics. So let's move on to gear. I'll make this quick since a lot of people already know what kind of gear they need to run. Generally, a main and 6 subs of quick respawn do the trick since getting in fast is important with the wiper. I usually run comeback on all modes and sometimes LDE for some zones maps. It really depends. If you struggle with ink management, this build really works, but the main build that I really use is this. This is mainly for building support with Torpedo and a very small boost in speed. The loss in respawn time in this can be a drawback, but it really is just a 1-second difference. So with that out of the way, let's move on to the sub. The sub is Torpedo. Torpedo is probably the best sub for wiper. It has a lot of utility and more importantly, it's a sub that threatens and not deals damage instantly. When you throw it near an enemy, it will lock on and fly its way toward the opponent. If it hits, it deals 60 damage and creates a small ring explosion that deals 35. That means if the torpedo directly hits, you automatically deal 60 damage, and if they try to move out of it while getting hit, it'll punish them by doing an additional 35, practically giving you the free pick. That's the best part. It's a sub that if you hit, forces the enemy to stop in their tracks or else they risk dying by the explosion. If not, and they somehow do avoid the ring and live, it's still a 2-shot horizontal and a 1-shot vertical when doing the slashes. If you have a full ink tank, you should almost always want to engage a fight with a torpedo. Just having it exist near them will make the enemy decide whether to focus on you or the torpedo, giving you some breathing room or more flexibility in your engagements. Another tip when fighting chargers is just spam torpedoes at them. This forces them to move out of the way or waste a shot on it, so it lets you move up whenever you throw one. Also, if you want to camp a safe jump, just roll the torpedo as soon as they land and then vertical slash them. It's an instant kill and it's a lot safer than just camping the jump right on top of them because they can still get out of the way and kill you. I could have missed a few things, but that pretty much covers the torpedo, so let's move on to Ultra Stamp. Ultra Stamp is very different. It can act as a hybrid of many things, but understanding how the special works and what you want to accomplish with it is important when using it. Ultra Stamp is basically a giant hammer, and whenever you make direct contact with the hammer, it's a 1-shot. And even if you miss, as long as you're hitting near them, it does do partial damage, allowing your teammate to follow up just in case you aren't able to get the pick. On paper, it does sound very good, but it has a lot of downgrades currently. The front isn't protected and sometimes doesn't even work properly, and there are a few things you can do to mitigate that kind of risk. Pulling out the stamp behind a wall or under a ledge can really help keep you protected. There's also really good use in using it on stationary specials such as Crab Tank and Booyah Bomb, because it literally just shreds them, as well as sharking with it for surprise picks that can really change the flow of the game. Another thing to know is that whenever you pop it and run with it, you are literally a giant hammer approaching someone. This makes people usually focus on you way too much. And if you can call that out, your teammates can really punish that. Ultimately, Stamp can be used for a lot of plays and can really flex into a lot of situations. It just depends on what you try to accomplish in that given moment. Oh, and another thing, something you can do to really get the Stamp going is jumping and then swinging. since when you pop it and just let it run on the ground, there is a bit of a delay. But when you jump and then run with it, it becomes significantly faster than just running with it to begin with. That pretty much covers Stamp, so let's move on. There are two main playstyles that apply to the Splatana wiper: Skirmisher and Slayer. But before I begin talking about them, let me explain something first. It's important to understand how these work and be able to balance between all of them. Remember, roles are fluid and you must be able to adapt to all of them with the weapon. So let's talk about Skirmisher first. Skirmishing with the wiper is probably the most important thing you want to do. Whenever a game starts, you and the other team are in neutral. Neutral is basically a point in the game where it is even, a 4v4. That's neutral. Something the wiper needs to achieve is getting in front of your team but not too close to the enemy. This makes the enemy focus more on you and your position and positions themselves according to your movements. That is skirmishing. It isn't just important during neutral or a stalemate. Skirmishing helps a ton in a match. Skirmishing can establish your presence on the map and threaten kills when you cannot cleanly get a kill or do not have the range or ground to move in. That is the most important thing with skirmishing. You are threatening kills, not getting them. This can also be applied to some areas with ledges because vertical slashing on ledges threatens a ton of space and makes people back up, since if they want to walk on the ledge, they have to risk dying to fight you. A few things to keep in mind when skirmishing is your positioning, knowing your range, and most importantly, not dying. The quick respawn is kind of a safety net to that, but as soon as you die, the whole plan just goes out the window. And those are the most important things to get down when skirmishing. And that pretty much covers it. So let's move on to Slayer. Slaying is when you have all the momentum in your favor. This playstyle goes for kills and tries to get as many picks as they can. I cannot stress this enough, but mechanical skill is really important here. You need to have the reaction time and the skills built up to be able to take fights and win them. It is difficult to say when to start acting as a Slayer. A lot of it can be intuitive based, but a common indicator to move in is when they have a player down. When getting kills, do it in a way that doesn't harm you or your team. Trades are not your goal here, as a trade can keep it in neutral, or give your team a disadvantage since you die. It opens up your backlines and allows other players to get picked because of it. If you can find the opportunity, take angles and use certain verticality to your advantage, and use all ledges to increase your movement on getting picks. However, if you're slaying too much, it can be a huge problem. If you can make it all the way to the enemy base, that can be good, but if your team is back in mid, then it serves no point in your push as it only staggers them for a little bit. Moving just a little far ahead to be able to watch your team and keep on slaying is the best balance, as you keep yourself away but with just enough distance to back up from a fight and enter neutral just in case. Playing Slayer is essentially just brute forcing your way and being mechanically better than your opponent. So only take fights you are confident that you can win. And that pretty much covers all the roles. As I said earlier, roles and playstyles are fluid. In order to become the best wiper player, you need to intuitively switch playstyles on a dime. If you choke during any of these, you will probably end up dying and waste your chance. By getting this down, you can become sorta a hybrid of everything, being capable of doing a lot for your team in matches. And that's pretty much it. So let's move on to matchups. The wiper is a very capable weapon and can fight a lot of different types. So here's what, in my opinion, would be an easy matchup. So here's the tier list. Take a good look at it, analyze it, agree, disagree, that's fine. This is just my opinion. The top basically being hold forward and push aggro and you'll eventually get the pick, and to the very bottom with weapons that you need to play smart around. Again, this can be wrong since some wiper players can deal with range more easily than a Luna, so it honestly is down to your own mechanics. As long as you are mindful of these matchups and play to your strengths, you can easily win a fight. And that's pretty much it. Just to wrap up a few thoughts, when making the jump from Dapples, I was really lost and had no idea what to play. I played many weapons and tried to imitate that same feeling and had went through a weapon crisis at the time. However, the coach of Jackpot nonchalantly mentioned during a coaching session that I should pick up Wiper, and from that moment I have never dropped it. The Wiper is a weapon capable of doing a ton of things, while keeping a variety of playstyles that are fun and unique to engage with. With Wiper, you are at the front. Every play will start based on what you do as a frontliner. So it is important that you are on top of everything no matter what, because it is your job to make things happen. As long as you keep that in mind, you will be fine, and try not to die. But that'll be it for the beginner Splatana wiper guide. Let me know if this was helpful in the comments below, and seriously, if you watched all the way to the end, thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.